Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of WWE SmackDown Live Review. And this is the first of what will be many reviews featuring me, Evan. Yes, it's the first time. I'm not a ghost. I'm actually back. I'm here, and we are live on PWF Empire for the first time in a long time. And yes, I am still here. It's been quite a time. But I am joined by Lucas. And how are we doing tonight, Lucas?
Evan, you look different. It's been like a gazillion years since the last time I saw you. You're still a Red Sox fan, so that's good to know.
Yep.
We can't talk about – and is that Roman Reigns you have in that calendar back there? I think you're going to piss a lot of fans off, by the way.
He just happens to be there in the month of April. It's not my fault. I didn't do it.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
You know, yeah, I know. He happens to be there the same month that he beat The Undertaker. I understand.
Kind of ironic, right, Evan? I think you're trying to aim for something there.
Yeah. Maybe I was the one that designed the calendar. Could have been me. But anyway, we're going to be talking about SmackDown Live here tonight and every Tuesday night because you know what? We got to talk about the Blue Brand. We got to give the Blue Brand some love because it has been a great show over the last number of months. And ever since it's been a live format, it's certainly been very entertaining to watch. And tonight's show was no exception. First episode of SmackDown following WrestleMania, and no doubt a couple of huge moments. We're going to talk about all of that. So we're going to kick the night off, though, by talking about our main event, which was a tag team match, as Teddy Long would say, between Randy Orton and Luke Harper taking on Erick Rowan, the GOAT, and Bray Wyatt. So I guess Erick Rowan is staying loyal to Bray Wyatt. He returned from his injury tonight, thankfully. Thankfully, he is back to grace us once more. I was getting nervous that we weren't going to see Erick Rowan again. I know you were too, Lucas. I know everyone that knows me was getting nervous for me because I was about to have a nervous breakdown if he wasn't going to come back. But anyway, we started the night off with Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt. They came out into the in the opening segment. Bray Wyatt ultimately appeared in the ring, and they had a little bit of a brawl. Looks like we're going to get a House of Horrors match between the two, so this feud is not over, unfortunately. But ultimately, we get Rowan and Harper out there as well to set up the tag team match. And the match itself was a bit of a strange way to finish the show, but Randy Orton and Luke Harper ultimately come out on top after Bray Wyatt, I guess, was trying to distract things, but Erick Rowan, being the nice man he is, being the humble individual that he is, decided to eat the pinfall once again. It's just amazing. It is amazing how humble man is.
I find it ironic how the first ever SmackDown Live weekly review show we do, and an episode in which you come back, Erick Rowan, out of nowhere, makes his presence felt as well. Like, it goes hand in hand. When Evan is on the show, he's got to talk about Erick Rowan, and here he was. Erick Rowan was right there for Evan to talk about. Jay, we know you're listening. This is for you too, my man. What a way to start the new year for SmackDown.
No, it's not. This isn't for me.
Jay,
Wild Jay has appeared.
Are you the Undertaker? Where's your face? I can't see it.
I think he's mystical, very much like the Undertaker. I think he went underneath that stage, under the PWF Empire Live stage, and I just don't know where he is. But either way, I love how Jay's only going to chime in about Erick Rowan. We could say anything else. He's not going to say a word.
No, see, because I know Lucas, he tried it. He was like, oh, Jay is not going to talk during this show, so let me troll him with Erick Rowan. No, it's not going to work that way.
Well, we'll see how much of that lasts. All right, buddy?
I don't think he can handle it because we're going to talk about Erick Rowan every week. Hell, we should just create a segment right here and now. Since it's the inaugural SmackDown Live review, we might as well just create a segment now and just say, you know what? Erick Rowan time. We're going to take 5 minutes, talk about the greatness of Rowan.
You know GOAT.
What? Yeah, he looks unbelievable, doesn't he? The beard is still as beautiful and flowing as ever. Just a magnificent man. But anyway, your thoughts on this main event. What did you think of the tag match? What do you think about Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton continuing to feud here?
I don't like it. I just really don't like it. You all know how I felt about this since the beginning of the year when this feud was teased with Randy Orton winning the Rumble. Tonight, I got the same impression I've had the last 3 months with SmackDown tonight, especially when Randy Orton opened the show. I think that was a huge buzzkill for me because you know who I wanted to start the show for me? AJ Styles. It would have made perfect sense had it been AJ Styles. Get the fans just excited right from the start. But instead we got Randy Orton, and I think that fell flat for me. And as for the main event, I just didn't care for it either. I think everything else on SmackDown, which we're going to talk about later, was great. But by the time we got to the end of the night and we already knew what was going to happen, the outcome was going to be predictable. The match itself, we knew was going to be predictable. Everything about that match, no matter if Erick Rowan came back, it was not going to do it for me. Luke Harper, though, I will say, he was pretty impressive, and it seems like he's over right now.
Yeah, he certainly does. And, I mean, that's been the way for Luke Harper anyway. I mean, this isn't anything new. This guy is probably one of the best big men I've seen in a long, long time. He can do things that many guys his size obviously can't. So I think Harper needs to be out on his own anyway. And it kind of felt like he was just there in this match. I mean, I don't really think he's like best friends with Randy Orton, because if I remember right, when Orton was a part of the Wyatt family, Harper and Orton were the ones that were, going back and forth. So it was kind of strange, and the main event to me fell flat. But again, I think that was really the like low light of SmackDown compared to some of these other things. And before we move on, to our next segment, we definitely need to talk about a couple of debuts that happened here tonight. First off, we had Tye Dillinger making his appearance, taking on Curt Hawkins in a quick match. But my God, is Tye Dillinger over?
10. I mean, listen, I'm not that familiar with this guy, but if that's what's going to get him over on SmackDown, then I guess so be it. He looks like a pretty good wrestler from what I've seen in his matches so far. But I don't know how long this whole 10 chant thing is going to last.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tye Dillinger is one of the most improved guys, because I remember him early in NXT just kind of being a guy who was there, and he was like a placeholder who just kind of would job out to a lot of guys. And I mean, he was a good wrestler, but that was pretty much it. And this gimmick has just like taken off, and I think he has improved a ton, and I think we're starting to see that here as he comes to the main roster. I understand that crowd tonight had a lot of guys in it who watch NXT all the time, whereas a normal crowd probably won't be anything like that. But damn, I think Tye Dillinger definitely is a good fit for SmackDown. I think he could be a good fit in like that Intercontinental title picture type of thing. And not only that, but if he can get even half the reaction he's getting tonight on a regular basis, it would probably be a pretty damn good thing.
That's a good point, too, because for SmackDown in general, one of the few things, because it certainly doesn't lack many things, but one of the few things it did lack was the fact that they didn't have much of a strong mid-card scene. In fact, that was kind of the early struggle with SmackDown. For all we saw during the last few months, it's all been about Dean Ambrose and Baron Corbin, really, and then the rest of SmackDown with the mid-card scene. It's been non-existent. So the more fresh faces we start seeing now, the more competitive it becomes for that Intercontinental title scene. If the Intercontinental title stays on SmackDown, that is. We're going to talk about that more later. But yeah, I think this is great for the SmackDown mid-carders. They need more faces there. They need more competition. Because to be honest, if it was just going to be a show with Ambrose and Corbin every week, that was going to get boring pretty quick,
Yeah, it sure was. I mean, I honestly think that Ambrose and Corbin at WrestleMania wasn't exactly your best Intercontinental Championship picture to really go with. So I think Tye Dillinger could be somebody who's thrown into that conversation. But the real debut that we have to talk about that's going to overshadow anyone's remembrance of Tye Dillinger appearing here is that of Shinsuke Nakamura. Man, this was an amazing moment and just like blew the roof off the place. It was insane. Because you have the violinist come out and play the theme song before the actual theme starts playing, before Shinsuke even hits the ring, and the place is already erupting, already knowing that it's coming. I'm like, oh my God, it's really happening here. But we can't forget the segment that preceded that, which was the Miz doing work as always.
Let's talk about the Miz, buddy.
Oh, we got to, because the Miz and Maryse come out dressed up as John Cena and Nikki Bella and give us an A+ impression / promo to make fun of them, and that to me was amazing. But to have Shinsuke Nakamura come out right after that, potentially teasing Shinsuke versus Miz, which I think would be an awesome introductory feud for Nakamura. But moreover, just two really cool things like back to back. So your emotions are kind of all over the place. You're laughing, you're having fun with Miz, and then boom, just like that, Nakamura's out there, and now your excitement levels, over 9,000 to make a certain reference.
Yeah, and here's the thing about the Miz segment before I talk about Nakamura. The thing about the Miz's segment, it was beautiful because everything you could picture him saying, he said. And I don't think, now that I think about it, that loss that he suffered at WrestleMania, I don't think it affects him after tonight, after what he did on SmackDown, because the guy just kept the ball rolling as far as mocking John Cena, making him look like a fraud. I mean, he hit the line on every cylinder. He's like, John Cena is trying to save face. That's why he proposed to Nikki Bella, because he doesn't want to be proved wrong, and that I was right the entire time. I think everything he did tonight was excellent to make sure that he keeps that momentum going for him going forward on SmackDown. The guy is, he's another masterpiece of SmackDown every single week. The guy is just always on fire, and tonight it was no different. The Miz, he's one of the hottest things on SmackDown. Hopefully he benefits from the whole superstar shakeup because, he's the MVP right now for SmackDown. And I love to see some sort of feud between him and AJ Styles. I mean, how great would that be? They're two of the biggest stars on SmackDown. In fact, I would say they are the biggest stars. So why not pair them up in a feud? That's what people have been asking for a long time. And as far as Nakamura, the thing about Nakamura that interests me so much is that he doesn't need to talk on the microphone at all to demand your attention. He's a guy that can grab your attention from the minute he enters the ring. And I haven't felt that kind of old school emotion as a wrestling fan in a very long time, where a guy who just simply enters the ring can entertain you that much with that level of intensity. And the whole dancing and the intensity on his face, it just pumps you up. He's an attraction. He's a show. He's a show in itself. So I like this energy, and I think he fits perfectly into the SmackDown scene, because I think if they were to send him over to Raw, he'd just be overshadowed by too much. Whereas with SmackDown, you give him that little platform, he can do so much with it.
Yeah, see, I feel the exact same way, because SmackDown is that type of show where a guy like Nakamura has an ability to shine that much greater. And it makes the WWE audience go that much more towards saying, okay, well, now I have a reason to watch both shows. It's not that Nakamura is the only reason, because you have The Miz, you have AJ Styles, you have Bray Wyatt, you have Randy Orton. I mean, even if those aren't characters that some of us may think are the reason why, Randy Orton is still a big draw, let's be honest here. So, and John Cena, of course. You have a lot of guys on SmackDown who make that show attractive, and Shinsuke Nakamura only adds to that dynamic that much further. So he's a great choice for SmackDown, no question about it. And as you said, The Miz just really being that MVP type guy, no question about it, and just going in and always delivering every week. So now the question is Miz a WWE champion? Is this a guy who you can see winning the WWE Championship from WWE's perspective? Are they actually going to pull that trigger? Because we all know that he deserves it. I don't think that's even a question. I think we would be, kind of preaching to the choir here. Will WWE pull that trigger?
I fucking hope so. This is the Miz we're talking about. I think it would actually be a good thing. It wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, many years ago, people might have been opposed to it because maybe he wasn't ready and WWE may have rushed him. But right now he's established, right? He's been in the company for a longer time. And like I said, his mic work, everything about him has gotten better. He's an attraction, and it seems like the fans, at least for the moment, they like the guy. But even if they don't and they go back to booing him, isn't that what he's doing? He wants people to boo him, so he would still be doing his job. He'd still be getting a reaction, much like Roman Reigns. I wouldn't mind that at all. Put him in the ring in championship matches against Nakamura or against AJ Styles. I think it'd be great for SmackDown. There's a story to be told there, because the guy can do so much on the microphone, and he can do so much to antagonize his opponent to the point where we'd all want to cheer his opponent as the babyface.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's for sure. And The Miz now, I think he carries a different type of ability with him than he did when he actually did win the WWE Championship several years back. He's different now than he was then. There's an added element of realism to The Miz. He goes out there and kind of backs up what he says. And not only that, but he does things in a way where I still think the whole mocking Daniel Bryan thing and how he's carried that out over the course of these last number of months has been one of the best best heel moves in long time in wrestling.
Yeah.
So I think The Miz has really been the most improved guy in all of wrestling, at least in WWE's sake, over his career. Because when he first came up, he was barely good enough to be in a tag team with John Morrison. I mean, let's be honest here. We're going back to like 2007 for a minute. But, you know, I'm just saying, over the course of his career, I watched him get better and better, and he improved a lot from like 2007 till 2010 when he became champion. But from then to now, the improvement is even greater, and that's what's amazing for him. So let's go ahead and move on to our next topic of discussion. You know, since this is our first show doing SmackDown Live review, I think it's a good idea that we kind of, you know, backtrack a little bit, talk about SmackDown as a live show, because this has been something that, you know, everyone has wanted, everyone has desired for a lot of years. We all wanted to see SmackDown be a live show and not taped anymore, and it's been live since the summer. But I think it's good that you and I, Lucas, take a minute here and talk about how we feel about SmackDown as a live show. How has it been? What has been the entertainment level? Has this show really gotten a heck of a lot better? Is the Blue brand in a much better spot now because it's live?
Of course. By every aspect, SmackDown has been the A show dating back to August or September, because they are the ones that provide you with the intensity and the entertainment you're looking for on a weekly basis. I like to refer to SmackDown as the show that's not so much just about soap opera, but it gives you a little bit of everything that Raw doesn't give you, and they do it in such little bit of time. That's the creative uniqueness about SmackDown, is that they give you so much, but then at the same time, they leave you with wanting more. And, you know, that it's the show where they don't have any limits, too, because if you look at Raw, you don't get these kind of segments that you see on SmackDown. You know, you don't get that same feeling. You see the promo work. The promo work is absolutely brilliant from some of the talent there. And it's funny because on Raw, they get 3 hours to provide you with that kind of mic work ability, but we don't see it. Whereas on SmackDown, they showcase to unique talents on their own their mic time, their mic ability, and they just show their characters. They show who they are. I just don't understand why Raw can't be the same, but this is not about Raw. This is about SmackDown, and for me, that's why it's my favorite show to watch every week, because we see character development every single week. We see storyline progression. We see effort, and that's what I like to see. I don't like to see fillers. I don't like to see time being wasted or saving stuff for a later date. That's kind of what Raw does, because Raw is like, you know, the big show, so I guess they don't need all of that. But SmackDown, I don't care if it's the underdog. It's if it's going to be the underdog forever, then keep that motivation going, because it's on a roll right now.
It's one of those things where I feel like, for me personally, the main reason why SmackDown is the better brand and is always something that I look more forward to watching is because of the fact that it is an hour shorter. And I know that that is the most ad nauseum, like you've heard it a million times type of thing, but I have to be honest, watching a 2-hour show is a lot easier than watching a 3-hour show. And the flow of SmackDown is excellent too. It always goes by well. It always clicks from segment to segment. They give the women's division enough time. Like tonight, you had a women's title match. It got time. It had a story. It progressed. And you had a good ending. Naomi retaining her title. You know, for example, that's just one example.
Yeah,
you know?
and that was I want to give a quick shout out to the match before you continue, because that was a fucking excellent match between Alexa Bliss and Naomi.
Yeah, it sure was. And you're also starting to see how these the women's division is starting to become more and more relevant, and they're actually telling a story in a women's match. That's a big improvement over what we used to get in years past. And you're also, again, like you said, seeing segments that aren't dragged out too long, but yet are developing character and developing story. Like The Miz. The Miz would not be able to shine like he is on SmackDown if he was on Monday Night Raw. There's no way that The Miz would shine as much. I think Raw is such a busybody with 3 hours that you, again, I have to, emphasize that because it's a lot of time, especially when you consider a weekend like this. WrestleMania 5 hours too long, Raw 3 hours too long, and then SmackDown 2 hours. By that time, people are kind of out of energy. But I will say SmackDown just flows so well. And I think a lot of it has to do with exactly that. You're allowing characters to develop, and you're giving enough time to every segment, but nothing feels like it's dragged on too long, and nothing really feels like it's filler because you don't have time to put out a bunch of filler because you have to do everything in those 2 hours. So when you have less time to do things, less becomes more. And Raw just has that stretched mentality where it's like, a segment will happen and you'll say that was good, but it feels like it was forever ago if it happens at 8:30 and the show doesn't end till 11 o'clock. You know what I mean? By the time you get to the end of the show, you're having a hard time recalling everything that's happened because the show just seems that much longer. And it's crazy to me how much an hour really makes of a difference. But I think it's also the live experience of SmackDown. That's the other aspect. That live experience gives it so that it's an actual audience. There's no pumped-in fan noise. There's no, just completely random edits that will happen in the show. Because trust me, that used to happen on SmackDown, and you'd be left scratching your head. And not only that, but there's no spoilers now. Because every week for SmackDown, it used to be like, well, I could just go on the dirt sheets, look at the spoilers, and unless there's something I wanted to see, I could just skip SmackDown this week unless it's something I want to see. But now that you know that it's live, you say, well, I can't miss SmackDown because unless I watch it, I'm not going to know what happened. So that element certainly provides a different feel for sure.
Yeah, and I think it also has a lot to do with fans being more into what they see on SmackDown because before, fans just don't care. But now, as you said, the storyline development, you could tell that the difference between the two audiences for Raw and SmackDown audiences, they're into what's going on in the ring. Like they actually like what they see and they react to it. And that's not just for one particular segment. It's for the entire show now where you see these reactions from the fans for anything involving SmackDown. And I think it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. So let's move on. Let's talk about this roster shakeup. We can't have this show without talking about the roster shakeup because Vince McMahon, yes, we will mention Raw for one quick second, did come out on Raw and said that there will be this huge brand different stuff going on next week. It was no real specific word, but I'm assuming this means maybe some trades and being able to pick up maybe free agents or something like that, using some sports terms that I know obviously you and I are very familiar with, Lucas. I like to kind of equate it to some sport terms. That makes the product seem more realistic in my opinion.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, people are quick to judge because they're not using the word draft. Well, you know what? Maybe it's not supposed to be a draft. Maybe that's why they're calling it a shakeup, because it's not necessarily going to be a draft. I just think we're going to see a few key moves, a few shifts from, some talent from Raw heading to SmackDown and some talent from SmackDown heading to Raw. That's all this is. But it's not going to be like a draft. I'm pretty sure if they wanted it to be a draft, they would have called it a freaking draft. But it's just going to be a few key names moving from brand to brand. That's all this is, and I don't see the harm in that.
Yeah, I don't either, because I like the idea of maybe some, like I said, trades or picking up free agents, so to speak, or things like that. The idea of maybe like a Sami Zayn moving from one brand to the other. But that's really the big question here. Who, in your opinion, and obviously I'll discuss mine as well, who needs to come to SmackDown from Raw? Who really needs that exposure on the blue brand? Like what kind of superstar, whether it male or female, is gonna benefit that much more, or tag teams? Because I saw in the chat some people talking about SmackDown's tag division maybe being a little bit weak. Is there some people who really need to come to SmackDown to flourish, and will it help SmackDown become a better brand?
I would say, Sami Zayn is an obvious one, so I'm not even going to say him. But another name I love to see from Raw come to SmackDown, who I think would shine, is Samoa Joe. Because the thing about Samoa Joe is he hasn't had time dedicated to himself. And that's where SmackDown is the beautiful show that it is for a guy like Samoa Joe, because he could do so much within 2 hours. He dedicates so much time to him that I think he would really be booked better as a monster heel on SmackDown. I just think that the emphasis hasn't been there enough on Samoa Joe on Raw. He seems more like Kevin Owens' lackey right now, and it's so freaking weird that that's happening, but I'm not going to get into that. I just think that he needs to be independent, and in order for him to be independent, I think SmackDown gives him that platform, because SmackDown is that show where you air your grievances, where you have your moments to shine, and it can do so much for your momentum. Example, we keep touching on it. The Miz, perfect example. Same thing with Samoa Joe, I think could happen here.
All right, that's definitely a good pick. I mean, I think Samoa Joe would definitely benefit as well. But I think Sami Zayn's the seems to be like the universal choice. Like everyone's kind of just saying, "Hey, let's put Sami Zayn on SmackDown because the guy needs to be more well exposed." And I really can't help but probably go along with that because Sami Zayn to me is like that. He's the epitome of what a babyface needs to be in wrestling in 2017. And I know that we got some blurred lines as to what exactly a babyface is anymore, or what a heel is anymore. Is everybody just a tweener at the end of the day? I don't know. We're all kind of confused with that. Fans are kind of hijacking shows. We have all these different, possibilities with that. But let's just stick to the, kind of have that flashback for a second. Just say we do have more of a straight-laced heel-face dichotomy here. And the babyface that is the babyface of them all is Sami Zayn. And I think that the only way that he really gets to flourish is on a show like SmackDown. This is the kind of guy who imagines Sami Zayn feuding with an AJ Styles. That feud would be red hot. That would be a fire feud. No question about it. And I really think that or Sami Zayn versus The Miz. I mean, what a nice feud that could be.
And he also relates with Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan in so many ways. Like
yes, absolutely. So I think that Sami Zayn's kind of the Daniel Bryan of right now.
Exactly.
He really is. He's kind of the closest thing that you have right now. So I really think that him going onto SmackDown would be a great choice. And I really think that you need to have that kind of guy who's like your top level face, because right now I think SmackDown's kind of struggling to find that. You can't tell me Randy Orton is that guy, because Randy Orton has gone down this road of being champion so many times before, and I'm not loving the idea of him being like the top babyface when I don't know. It's already happened so many times. I think SmackDown's supposed to be that show that represents the new age, right? The new age of guys who are up and coming, and we see Shinsuke Nakamura and Tye Dillinger making their debuts tonight. That certainly backs up that sentiment. AJ Styles backs up that sentiment. Even if he's been around for a long time, he's still new in terms of WWE. So you have a lot of like new faces here, but then Randy Orton's the guy with the belt. So I feel like Sami Zayn comes in, and if he's the one to like defeat Randy Orton for the championship, for example, how much of a statement is that to the new era really kind of taking over? I really think that Zayn can be that guy.
Mm-hmm. And I think he would pick up that momentum that Daniel Bryan had back when he was wrestling. I really do think that Sami Zayn could win over the crowd by that much in the palm of his hands if he were to go to SmackDown. But it's interesting you brought up how, you need like an established face to carry SmackDown. I think AJ Styles, after tonight, he's turned babyface again. He offered Shane McMahon that handshake. That's something I guess we didn't talk about earlier. But now that you mention a face, that's another thing to consider about this shakeup. Is AJ Styles now a babyface again, and will he stay on SmackDown? I certainly would love to see that happen. I want to see him stay on SmackDown.
Yeah, I agree. I think AJ Styles is perfect for SmackDown, and I think Sami Zayn is also perfect for SmackDown. AJ Styles is a babyface. I mean, we kind of saw it, and I'm not saying he's a bad babyface, but I definitely think Styles serves his purpose a little bit better as this arrogant, outspoken guy that he's been the last few months. I think that's how AJ Styles works best, and if you have that same guy against Sami Zayn, the likable Sami Zayn, you have a heck of a feud, and I really think that could be something special going forward for the SmackDown brand. Any tag teams, though, that you think from Raw who would be better served on SmackDown? Because you notice you have a lot of teams on Raw, but SmackDown, it seems to be kind of struggling for teams. Outside of American Alpha, which is an amazing team, don't get me wrong. But
that's a tricky one, because I don't know which team I would want to go to SmackDown, because I think any team that goes to SmackDown is a good choice. Like, I don't have a preference, to be honest with you. Whether it's the Hardys or the Revival, I'm okay with either one. Hell, even the New Day. It's like any tag team from Raw, I'll take to come to SmackDown. So for that one, I would say it's up in the air, to be honest with you.
Right. And see, and I think that New Day would be suited well for SmackDown, because there's already so many big acts on Raw. Like, I think New Day and Enzo and Cass are best off if one is on each brand, because I feel like those are two teams that hype the crowd big time.
Yeah.
You know, you have New Day come out, all right, insert city here, everybody's already New Day rocks, everyone gets into it, and the people are still very into New Day, and I think they're still a good team that should stay together for some more time, even if they aren't champions anymore. I thought they were good hosts for WrestleMania. I thought that role was actually perfect for them. But I think Enzo and Cass actually might be a really good choice to move to SmackDown. They lost that number one contenders match this week, and I have to feel like they just don't really have a spot right now. They're kind of just in no man's land, and I think Enzo and Cass versus American Alpha would actually be a really good feud over the tag titles. So I honestly think them moving over to SmackDown would be a great move, but the Hardys could definitely fit on SmackDown as well. Again, you want to have a good balance, and I think that SmackDown is kind of lacking the depth with tag teams. They have a couple of teams, like, say, the Vaudevillains and the Demolition 2.0 or whatever we're calling them nowadays, and the Ascension. I honestly forgot the name of the team, and that's why I said that. I'm not going to lie to you. And it's understandable why you'd forget the name of the team, because who are they, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, these were guys in NXT who everyone was praising and going on and on about, and, now they're just whoever. The same with the Vaudevillains. So if those teams aren't even relevant, you can't tell me they're on the same level as American Alpha, because they're not. But you're right. Maybe the Revival should have debuted on SmackDown. Maybe that could be part of the shakeup, is one of the teams moves over. Now, any women's wrestlers though from Raw that you think maybe would fit better onto SmackDown as well?
I would say for this one, I don't think there would be any change. Well, not just that I think there won't be, but I don't want there to be, because I think everyone is placed, like, as far as the women's division, I think everyone is placed exactly where they belong, to be quite honest with you. So for that one, I wouldn't say shift anybody, because I think everyone is fine where they are, including SmackDown, for sure.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that you make a point there. I mean, if there's any women out of, like, the Charlotte, Sasha, Bayley, Nia, like, out of those four who seem to be, like, the front runners right now of that division, I really don't know if any of them are better off on SmackDown other than Charlotte, honestly. Like, I think Charlotte's like the front runner. She's like that top level girl that's on a level that no one else is. So I think she could fit on SmackDown pretty well, because she could be like that top dog, and there's a lot of like youth on SmackDown, or like women who don't have the experience she has, or the quote unquote pedigree that she has, like, again, not in her character's terms, because I think she would do well over there. Actually, I think Sasha could fit over there as well. But I think we can leave things kind of how they are right now, because the women of SmackDown are actually really good. You have a good veteran in like Mickie James. You have Natty over there, a couple of veterans, though, who really hold that roster down just fine. And then not only that, but Naomi and Alexa Bliss really doing a great job right now, too.
Yeah, I would say I would say don't fix what's not broken. Like, there's nothing that I think is broken right now in regards to the SmackDown women's division. I'm not going to speak for Raw's, because not only is that not our job, but I have a different opinion on Raw. But for SmackDown, I think the women on SmackDown, they're fine the way they are. I say leave it. Don't try and fix it at all,
Yeah, definitely a good point. All right, so now we're going to move on to our top moment and our worst moment from this week's SmackDown, which is something that we're going to do each and every week. Kind of talk about the one segment match moment from this episode of SmackDown that was your absolute favorite, top notch, number one, and then we're going to move into the worst one. So for Lucas, what do you think? What was your number one moment that really stuck out to you here tonight?
It's got to be Nakamura, because, like I said earlier, he didn't have to say a damn word, and he had the crowd in the palm of his hands. I think that speaks volumes. Ironically, him not saying a word spoke volumes, So his presence alone just provided a different atmosphere, a different outlook for the entire SmackDown product. I haven't seen a superstar make an arrival like that on SmackDown and just lit the entire place up in a very long time, and that includes even before SmackDown, the new era of SmackDown, even years before when it was taped. I haven't seen that kind of reaction for a superstar on SmackDown in years. And Nakamura, I mean, it felt like I was watching a pay-per-view or something. That reaction tonight, it was amazing, So I would say that's definitely my shine for tonight, and my spotlight would have to be on Nakamura.
Yeah, I don't blame you one bit. I mean, honestly, that's the easy one to say. To be different than you, though, I will divert and say something else. I will say that the spotlight needs to be on The Miz once again, and I mean, that spotlight's been on him a lot since SmackDown Live's been going on, but I gotta give it to him and Maryse for their impression of John Cena and Nikki Bella tonight. I thought that, which did precede the Shinsuke debut, was just excellent. It was funny, it was well executed, and it just showed off Miz and Maryse's strengths as a couple. We gotta give Maryse a little bit of props here too. I know we talk about The Miz all the time, but she's that, as Jay would say, that ride or die chick, and she has been spectacular alongside The Miz all this time. And tonight I thought she was especially great when she was pretending to be Nikki. It had me laughing, it had me entertained, and not only that, but it just showed off the strengths of their characters. So I thought that was really the standout moment of the night, other than the Shinsuke moment. So I just got to throw the spotlight on them, because I think it's only fair that we have a bit of a difference of opinion on the top moment here. I think it's only fair that I give Miz credit, since you decided not to. So now, how about your worst moment of the night? What was just terrible? I mean, this wasn't a bad show at all. I thought this was a good episode of SmackDown. I know you did too, but there had to be something in there that was a stinker.
Yeah, I don't really want to be too negative for this show, because I thought it was an excellent show. I would give it, a 10 out of 10. That's how good it was. But I just have to nitpick something here, and you know where I'm going with this. Randy freaking Orton. Just get that guy off my television. It's the entire act is just so old, and I just can't stand it. It's the same thing. I'm Randy Orton. I am the Viper, and I'm going to kick your ass. Like, no, that's not entertaining. Come on, please. Why is this guy the champion right now? And then that main event, you talk about such an underwhelming main event. I mean, just go away. That's my thumbs down. Randy Orton. I'm not gonna bash, the other guys involved in that main event tonight.
Especially not Erick Rowan, correct?
Well, yeah.
I mean, you can't bash Erick Rowan.
Right.
That's impossible.
And I will throw some shade at Bray Wyatt too, because I feel like Bray Wyatt, once again, he's in that position where it's like he's been buried, so why should I take him seriously? And, they're trying to do this whole House of Horrors thing, and how he's going to change Randy Orton forever. Well, then what the hell was the point of the last few months? Like, were we just watching to watch? What was the freaking point of the last 7 months? We're going to transform Randy Orton. He's in the Wyatt family. Yeah, you didn't accomplish it then. What makes you think you're going to accomplish it now? So I would say tonight, that was awful. Like, that just didn't work for me. The opening segment and the closing did not work for me as far as Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt are concerned.
Yeah, because now you know that you're getting another match. And after what happened at WrestleMania, I was trying to stay awake more than anything else during that. So I definitely think that you have yourself a point there. I think my low light here for tonight, I gotta say, Mojo Rawley's segment was probably my least favorite thing of this entire show. And I know that it's an irrelevant segment, but Mojo Rawley winning the Andre Battle Royal was really stupid, because that was like designed for Strowman to win. I mean, I think we all know that. Again, Gronk is my guy because I'm a Pats fan for life, obviously. But Mojo Rawley's segment was just terrible. Like, he tries to come across as like with all this energy, and it just fails every time, in my opinion. Like, I think this guy is the opposite of something that you want to push. So if it's anything like the other Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royals, then it won't matter, and Mojo Rawley will go nowhere, and nothing will happen. I mean, Baron Corbin, nothing really happened with him. Nothing really happened with Big Show. Nothing happened with Cesaro. So really, nobody who's won the Andre Battle Royal in the 4 years of it's been around, nothing has happened. So hopefully that trend continues here. Nothing against Mojo personally. I just don't like this character, and he's just like, can you feel it now? All I could think of was, are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob? Like, it just doesn't come across the way that it needs to for me. And I honestly, that really is my low light of the night. Like, it honestly was, I sat there and was just in disbelief. Like, this guy really just thought he got over with the crowd. You could hear them booing him. He just doesn't come across the right way. So to me, that was even worse than the main event, because the main event was exactly what I expected, which was, standard tag team match, play a holla holla. I think Teddy Long might be the secret general manager of SmackDown here, or something like that. But either way,
Brian wasn't on the show tonight, so you have a good point there.
Maybe he was the interim GM tonight. I mean, he didn't get the role last night on Raw, so I mean, we got to make up for it somewhere. The Blue Brand bringing it back for Teddy Long, can't disappoint the poor guy all the time. All right, so anyway, to finish up this show, I think it's only fair that we kind of throw it to everyone in the chat and allow you guys to kind of hit us with some questions and do a bit of a Q&A session pertaining to this week's SmackDown. Any questions that you guys have for us in particular?
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Here we go.
Jay has emerged from the shadows.
Yes, so as you all know, we have this whole hashtag Raw After Mania. It has become, quote-unquote, a thing over these past few years in WWE. With SmackDown being live now, with it being on Tuesdays, do you think that this episode of SmackDown was a good one in establishing that same type of hype around the Blue Brand?
That's going to be pretty hard to say. Like, I think SmackDown has established that momentum as far as, creating a SmackDown After Mania tradition, because the thing is, Raw is literally the night after WrestleMania, whereas SmackDown is 2 nights after Mania. Not that there won't be that same excitement, but I just think the fans, by that point, Tuesday, it's like the final day of the week in terms of wrestling. They might be too worn out, too exhausted. Tonight they weren't, though. They were alive and well alive, actually. They were chanting all sorts of things, but I still felt, even with that loud crowd we had tonight, it wasn't as loud as it was last night. I'm not trying to say that the fans ultimately determine how good SmackDown or Raw After Mania is, but I'm just trying to say that I don't know, as far as energy is involved, like fan energy, I don't think it'll be the same as the energy you get from Raw. But as far as like WWE's progression of storylines after Raw or SmackDown for Mania, I think tonight SmackDown beat Raw in that regard. I felt SmackDown did accomplish setting the bar for storyline progression after Mania, as far as creating debuts such as Nakamura. We saw that storyline development there, where we got to see new faces on SmackDown, and I just really liked how they progressed story, because Raw just felt too much about the fans last night, but SmackDown really stood out in the fact that we saw new characters, new faces, and I felt that was very important.
Yeah, see, I feel that way too, but I do think that this show didn't quite have the atmosphere that Raw did the night before. I think that this show is always going to have a harder time doing that anyway, because it is that, like you said it very well when you said that it's 2 nights after versus 1 night after. The night after, more people are going to tune in by nature. I think that's just the way it is. It's under 24 hours after the pay-per-view goes off the air. Bang, we're right back on the air with Monday Night Raw. You give us an extra 24 hours on top of that, and there's a lot less people, I think, that are going to tune in. And I think that this show definitely tried. I can tell the effort level was on for them, trying to make this feel like it leveled up to what Raw was doing, especially with Nakamura's debut and Tye Dillinger being thrown in there as well. You give us a SmackDown Women's title match that gets plenty of time, and you get the
street fight
and a street fight as well, which I'll give me 1 second on that. And you also get the establishment on Orton and Wyatt continuing forward, even though that's not necessarily what I like. So I think that's honestly the main event scenario they have going on with Orton and Wyatt continuing. I think that's dragging SmackDown in the wrong direction. Everything else is like, great, all right, this is good, but the WWE title stuff, to me, it feels like it's kind of ass backwards. But as far as that street fight goes, I'll ask you, Lucas, do you think that should have been the stipulation at WrestleMania instead of on SmackDown 2 nights later?
That's a good question. And I was actually, it's good we're talking about this now, because this is something everyone wanted to know, like what happened with that whole Dean Ambrose thing. But I think that was the plan, but because WWE probably had too big of a card for Mania, they probably figured, let's just take this off the main card and save it for SmackDown. But hey, I think it paid off, because we know who got the win there, and it was Baron Corbin, and he got to show who he truly is. he benefited from that victory tonight, as opposed to on WrestleMania where he probably would have lost. So I'm glad that he won tonight. Even if it wasn't for the title, he still was able to look dominant, and I think that was important for the first SmackDown after Mania.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way too. To me, a street fight would have been better fit for this match at WrestleMania. I mean, it's not really exactly a great feud by any means. I don't want to, trash the IC title right now, but the IC title is kind of trash right now. And I don't think Dean Ambrose is in a great position here. I think Baron Corbin, we're starting to see his improvement tenfold. Dean Ambrose, kind of in no man's land. I'm not going to lie. This street fight, though, was fun, and I enjoyed it. I just wish it happened at the big show instead of on Tuesday night. Either way, though, I hope Baron Corbin wins the Intercontinental title. He deserves it. Absolutely. No question in my mind.
Yeah, and I got so excited when Baron Corbin won the match, but then it's like, oh, wait, it wasn't for the title. So you kind of you had that moment there where you felt upset because you knew it wasn't for the title. But I genuinely feel like, if he had won that match tonight and he won the title, boy, that would have changed the game for him. But it was still good. I think they used him right. And it's a safe call that they put him on the pre-show last night where he lost, because not that many people saw the pre-show, So
right. Yeah, that definitely. So we look in the chat here. It looks like we got some questions coming up. Micah Williams saying, since it seems that the feud for Alexa Bliss versus Naomi seems to be done, who would you like to see her face next? I'm presuming Naomi. Who's Naomi going to go for with the championship next?
See, wishful thinking. Part of me says this is where I would love to see Sasha Banks be shifted to SmackDown, because could you imagine Naomi versus Sasha Banks?
It'd be good.
But realistically, I think her next opponent might be Mickie James.
Yeah, so, you know what? That's a good choice, because Mickie James is like that. She's somebody who seems like an ageless wonder, so to speak. She's been wrestling for a long time and still can do it and looks good doing it. She doesn't look like she's lost a step. Very similar to what I feel about the Hardy Boys. They come back and it looks like they never left. And I feel the same way about Mickie James. She has really kind of been that never left type character, and I think that would be really interesting, because Naomi's a good babyface. She's got the entrance, she's got the charisma, she's fun, the fans get into it. I really like Naomi. I think she's got a lot of likable qualities, and Mickie James can be like a dastardly heel. She can be a good babyface too. We've seen her be able to succeed in both ways, but I think that her versus Naomi would actually be the best choice next too. I'm definitely with you on that.
Yeah.
Another question from Bayshore 415. Who do you think Nakamura will be feuding with first?
See, people are saying The Miz. I don't think it's going to be The Miz. I just think that they did that moment there where he interrupted that segment so that he could have his moment to shine and just completely overshadow anything The Miz did. I think that's all it was. But as far as a feud is concerned, I think his perfect opponent over on SmackDown right now, it has to be AJ Styles. It has to be AJ Styles, in my opinion.
Yeah, see, that is a good idea, because I think AJ's kind of, where does he go right now?
Yeah, exactly.
The feud with Shane's done, so now what? So I definitely think you make a point there. But the idea of Miz versus Nakamura first, to me, would be so perfect, because Miz is that perfect antagonist for Nakamura, and I feel like Nakamura, Miz can come out next week and be like, he disrespected me when I was making fun of John Cena, blah blah blah, and it would be an easy transition there. I think that's kind of a layup there to have that be the next feud going forward. I don't know. It's hard. I think Styles definitely would fit him too, though.
Yeah, because it's what you said. Styles right now is in the middle of nothing, because Randy Orton is still going to be feuding with Bray Wyatt. So then, where does AJ Styles go from here? He needs, unless he's the one that faces the Miz next, But I think those three guys. It's interesting. They all connected dots together: AJ, Miz, and Nakamura. So it's eventually 2 out of the 3 have to meet up together at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Another question here from A Dupree 771. Do you guys think WWE ruins a lot of organic things? I feel it isn't as special when the WWE overexposes it. That's my question for the host. Well, thank you very much. So, I mean, let's try to, kind of keep this on track with SmackDown Live. Is WWE ruining anything organic here? Overexposing anything on SmackDown Live? Like, are we seeing an overexposure of NXT talents? Like, again, you have Tye Dillinger debut tonight, but you also have Shinsuke Nakamura tonight. Do we lose something out of that? Are we getting too much happening in 2 hours? Or could we have had two separate shows, like one for Dillinger tonight, and then, like, say, next week you have Nakamura? You know, are we ruining something? Are we losing something here?
That's actually a very good question, because WWE never would do something like this 10, 20 years ago. I think with SmackDown, you definitely want to keep it to one debut because of that whole shine aspect. You know, that's what we've been touching on a lot tonight. The fact that it's such a little show, 2 hours, you got to give these guys a platform. So I think the less debuts you see on SmackDown, the more it'll have on the impact of the guy that does arrive to the scenes. And who are we talking about right now? Let's be honest here. Are we talking more about Nakamura or Tye Dillinger? So I think that's a good point in the fact that, yeah, there is overexposure because we're not talking about Dillinger as much as we're talking about Nakamura. So, yeah, I would say keep that balance, definitely for SmackDown.
Yeah, see, I'm feeling the same way about that for sure, because to me, one debut at a time is probably the best option. But again, Tye Dillinger's been that guy who's kind of just been a placeholder like we talked about before, who's just kind of emerged lately more so than anything else on the more recent episodes of NXT, for sure. But at the same time, Nakamura's debut definitely overshadowed his. So I think that it's a good point to say, okay, are we getting a little bit too much here? Maybe we are, because Monday Night Raw, we saw some of that too. Obviously, I want to stick to SmackDown, but using that kind of as an example, like, we do tend to see 2 or 3 big moments happen in one night, and then the next week there's no big moments. So why not spread out the big moments, one here, one there, so that way every week you watch SmackDown, it kind of plants that seed of thought in your head, okay, every time I watch SmackDown, something big can happen or could happen. I need to tune in this week because anything can happen. Whereas if you know that after WrestleMania you're going to get 2 or 3 big moments every time, then you're going to say to yourself, well, I'll watch the first show because I know I'm going to get a bunch of big moments, and then next week I'm probably not going to get anything, so, whatever. I mean, so I think it makes more sense to kind of spread things out. But again, that also brings into question, how big of a debut is Tye Dillinger compared to Shinsuke Nakamura? Not really too big, because Shinsuke's like an international superstar. Tye Dillinger's a guy who is obviously extremely over in NXT, but beyond that, he's not exactly to the superstar level of Nakamura.
Exactly.
So we'll take one more question here. It's from Niker411. WWE seems to want to make Mojo a thing. Yikes. So do you think he could have a run with either the US or IC title?
No.
What do you think?
No. Not a chance in hell.
Yeah, no. Just that's all you got. Just no chance in hell, huh? I don't disagree with you. I was just talking about how I don't understand why he won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal when that match appeared to be designed for Braun Strowman. But I'm gonna say here, I really think that Mojo Rawley, like, he could have some potential. The character he is right now, I'm agreeing, no chance in hell. Like, there's no way that I want this current guy to be a champion of any sort. Like, could he hold the mid-card belt? Yeah, I mean, given some of the people that have held the mid-card titles in the past, of course he could. But I don't want him to. I'm not really a big fan of Mojo at all. In fact, him being with Zack Ryder was probably the best thing that I was going to get out of Mojo Rawley. That was probably the most I was going to have a shot at liking him, was him being a part of a tag team, because I think he could work with a partner, and, the tag team dynamic, he looks like a guy who could be in a tag team and do well. You put him as a singles guy, and I'm not exactly so sure. I love my guy Gronk, but damn it, Gronk, couldn't you have stayed out of the ring and let somebody else win the freaking match other than Mojo freaking Rawley? But anyway, that is pretty much going to do us here for this SmackDown Live review, this being our inaugural episode. And damn, it's good to be back, man. It's good to be back. How did you enjoy yourself?
I felt like I never missed a beat. Like we were just doing this yesterday, last week, whatever. I'm glad. You know, this is going to be a weekly thing. Hopefully, we represent the blue band well. The blue band. I'm sorry, the blue brand well. I'm tired as hell. I'm sorry. The blue brand well for SmackDown, for PWF Empire. You know, we're gonna have some competition with the Raw crew, but hey,
those guys don't even know what's coming though. They don't
exactly.
know. The blue brand is the brand, man. That's a tongue twister though. Blue brand. We're gonna have to really get ourselves ready for that every week. Like I'm gonna have to mentally prepare myself to say that on a weekly basis. But anyway, that is pretty much gonna do us though, guys. Be sure to drop a like for us. Comment down below. We thank you so much for participating with us throughout this show. Always so much appreciated here on PWF Empire Live. We'll be back next week, same place, same time, talking about SmackDown Live. Thanks for watching, everybody, and until next time, peace out.
Tuesdays.
Gimmick infringement.